So Aaron raised his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the whole land. But the magicians were able to do the same thing with their magic. They too caused frogs to come up on the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and begged, "Plead with the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people. I will let your people go so they can offer sacrifices to the Lord." "You set the time," Moses replied. "Tell me when you want me to pray for you, your officials, and your people. Then you and your houses will be rid of the frogs. They will remain only in the Nile River." And Pharaoh's response, "Do it tomorrow." Now, many of you were in Mena during the last big tornado. Or maybe you've been part of an ice storm where the power was out for days and weeks. And it's fun the first day, and then it gets old in a hurry, and your skin crawls, and you just had enough. And let's just suppose the chairman of the board from the electric company calls you up personally and said, "Hey, got good news for you. I will come over there myself and make sure that the workers hook your power back up first. I'm ready whenever you are. When do you want me to come?" And you say, "Oh, tomorrow." Is something not right there? Does something not fit? Why would you want to put up with the frogs for one more night? For years, I've heard of sermons preachers preached with this title I loved. It's called "One More Night with the Frogs." I've never actually heard one of those sermons, never preached a sermon on it, but I have always wanted to. And the very title of it almost gives you at least half the meaning of it. One more night with the frogs. Why would anybody want one more night of misery when they could take care of the problem now, today, this minute? Well, I don't know all the reasons, but today I'm going to tell you some of Pharaoh's reasons, and I'm going to point out some of the reasons you and I spend night after night, year after year, tormented by frogs that we would not have to put up with. And yet, there's something we don't want to sacrifice in order to be free of the frogs. And so every time we find ourselves reminded that we really wouldn't have to live like this, if we would only take certain steps, very difficult, uncomfortable steps, scary, perhaps painful steps, if we would do that, we could change our life today. Oh, but there's something in us, isn't there, that just wants to wait till tomorrow. Was it Scarlett O'Hara who said, "Tomorrow is the most wonderful day ever invented"? A person can do anything in all the world she wants to do tomorrow. And it's true. But why do we wait? A lot of it is indecision. Do you know that one of the big differences between people who successfully live a healthy Christian life, growing in their faith, one basic difference between them and those Christians who just remain stunted in their growth? They never seem to develop, and therefore they're never able to do the things in the service of God that they might have done. You know the number one difference between those people? indecision. Because in order to grow, in order to keep growing, I've got to do uncomfortable things. I have to take an honest look at myself. I've even got to ask honest people who know me well and love me, hey, I know it's probably going to hurt, but can you tell me, please? Tell me what I need to know that I really don't want to hear. And I don't mean just rip me. I mean, if there's something that you can tell I need to work on, would you please just tell me? Because although it's going to hurt me, it's going to hurt me and a whole lot of other people a whole lot more if I don't find out what it is. And I go on living the way I'm living. Very uncomfortable. The difference between successful Christians and Christians who flounder, indecision. Andy Andrews is a motivational speaker from my home state, Alabama. He spent the first few years of adulthood living under bridges, homeless totally, until one day he decided that he had spent enough nights with the frogs. And he went to a library, Andy Andrews did, and he began to read biographies of people who accomplished something with their lives. And he started taking notes. And he started noticing that things, that people who do great things for God, for the world, are those people who are willing to do things and willing to sacrifice things that most others are not. And Andy had to decide, how many more nights am I going to spend with the frogs here? I've already had several nights too many. He's now a best-selling author, travels all over, speaking. But he made this comment, he made this quote that comes to me often. Andy Andrews said, successful people make decisions quickly. And then once the decision's made, they change their minds very slowly. Whereas unsuccessful people make up their minds very slowly because they can't decide. And then once they do finally make a decision, they second guess it so bad that they change their mind quickly and they never follow through. Decision. Ooh, it's a powerful thing. I heard a man put it this way just the other day. A man of decision cannot be stopped. A man of indecision cannot even be started. Because any good thing, any godly thing you're going to do is going to require a decision that you start immediately, not tomorrow, but today. You see, it seems like our natural minds, what the Bible calls the carnal mind, is programmed to protect us from anything uncomfortable, anything dangerous, anything that's going to put us under stress. Our natural mind will analyze that very quickly and immediately start shooting up all the reasons why we don't need to take this step. It's just too hard. At least wait till tomorrow. I mean, one more night with the frogs. Then there's another night and another night and another night. Do you know why Pharaoh was really willing to spend one more night with the frogs, even though they were making his life miserable? They were like, and by the way, if you allow indecision to make your life miserable, it will affect the people around you. Everyone connected to you will also wind up in some degree of pain and misery because of your indecision. Pharaoh wouldn't decide, and so that meant not only did Pharaoh have to put up with the frogs for a whole nother 24 hours, so did a millions of other innocent Egyptians. So why did he do that? Why did he say tomorrow? Here's what I think it is. It's something I see all the time. I've seen it in myself. I see it in people I talk with. Most of us will not change. We will not go through the difficulty, the discomfort, the pain, the stress of making a change until the pain of staying the same gets so bad that it's even worse than the discomfort I'll have to go through in order to change my life. That is what it took for Pharaoh. You see, this was only plague number 2. 8 more were coming. And the story kept repeating itself over and over and over. A plague would come. Pharaoh would call for Moses, get rid of it. I promise I'll let you go, but he would change his mind before time came to follow through. Listen to the other plagues that came. Lice, flies, livestock disease that killed all the livestock in Egypt. Boils on the skin of the Egyptians. Hail that destroyed the crops. Locusts, darkness over the whole land. And then finally, one that finally got him. His firstborn son died. That'll get anybody's attention. Man, if that doesn't get a person, what would? When he found his son dead, and he realized it was ultimately because of his own indecision, his own selfish refusal to surrender. Let these people go. You see, it got more painful to keep these slaves than it was to let go of them. And only then did he get any relief from the plagues, but still, it was too late for his son. And it could have all been resolved at the first plague or the second. But he just kept wanting one more night with the frogs, a little more lice, a little more biting insects. And there's also an element here of just plain old immature procrastination. One reason we don't do it is because it's hard. And very closely related to that is because it's hard, because it's uncomfortable, because it's going to require a lot of us, we procrastinate. That's part of the natural mind too, avoiding anything that's not pleasant. I would think that school teachers probably hear some of the best procrastinating lines. I came across a few of them. I would have done my history homework, but I'm just learning that it's not good to dwell on the past. I had my I had my math homework, but I lost it in a fist fight with a boy who said, "You, teacher, were the worst teacher in school." And then I want to give you a few more that are going to be on your screen. These you actually need to see. Kermit the Frog. Here we see another frog. My sister's friends, mothers, grandpas, brothers, grandsons, uncles' fish died. Yes, it was tragic. Have you noticed how many people love to tell you about all the sickness in their extended family? I mean, that is important to a point. But some people, that's their favorite conversation topic. Because through other people being sick, they find excuses to get out of all kind of stuff. Now this one I love. I'm very busy doing things I don't need to do in order to avoid doing anything I'm actually supposed to be doing. Ever find yourself, I did it just yesterday. The sermon was not quite finished. And I wanted to do all sorts of things besides finish that sermon. I wanted to wash dishes. I ran a load of laundry and dried it and folded it. Because I've got this kind of mind. Me, a procrastinator? I'll prove you wrong. Someday you just wait and see. I think there's one more. I'm taking care of my procrastination issues. You just wait and see. Same idea. This is my favorite probably. I leave homework till the last day because I'll be older and therefore wiser then. Well, you get the idea. Procrastination stops a lot of us, and just the fact that you were able to see how ridiculous a lot of that was tells me I don't need to say much else about it. I got to tell you, though, about one other reason we choose to spend one more night with the frogs. Why we continue putting up with a miserable life when we could change it with one move of surrender. You know what that is? We like to be in control. That, for Pharaoh, was probably the biggest. You know, for some people it would be procrastination. For others, it's that they just don't like doing difficult things. They're indecisive. But for some, it really is about control. Do we have any control freaks in the house? I'll give you a clue. If you automatically assume you're not one, you might be. Because if you're a control freak, most people in your life are going to be afraid to tell you. Because they've learned that when they say something that you did not want to hear, they're going to pay for it. And it gets to a point, this is sad, but it gets to a point where people try to be honest with you. They try to point out your control issue or your procrastination issue. They try to point out the rude way you tend to talk with people, whatever. They try to point it out, and your reaction is so negative that they wish they had never brought it up. And you know what happens? You don't change anyway. And so what are they going to do? Your spouse, your children. If you're an adult, your parents, your friends, certainly the people who work for you. You know what? They're going to conclude, hey, yes, there's a whole lot. There is a whole lot that Jerry Inman needs to hear. But it's not worth being the person that has to tell him, because all it does is bring a whole bunch of misery and stress on me. It's a battle that's not winnable and not worth it. So what happens to people like that? Here's what happens. The older they get, the worse they get, because nobody can talk straight to them. And so the older they get, they start thinking they're pretty darn good. After all, nobody ever told me anything was wrong with me, not in a long time. And they gain control, especially if you're talking about a successful person with people who work under him or her. The larger number of people working under you, the more control you have. Listen, the people who work for you cannot always afford to tell you the truth. unless you are such a mature Christian that you take the initiative to look them in the eye and say, hey, I know I've lost some people here in the past, and it can't be all them. Is there anything about the way I'm operating that I should know? You've got my permission. 5-second window right here. If you were to take that initiative, you'd be surprised at what you might hear. It would be very valuable information. But otherwise, they can't say that. They can't bring that stuff up. And that is one of the reasons. Oh, listen. That is one of the reasons Jesus said it's hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Why? What does riches have to do with control and power? Well, money is power. The people with the money have most of the influence. And the person who's got the money gets very accustomed to getting what he or she wants, because they can buy it off, or people will just cater to them to get on their good side. And therefore, though there's nothing wrong with being wealthy, successful, Abraham was wealthy and successful. Jesus' ministry was supported by wealthy, successful people. But, they were people who were very open. They were the kind of people who prayed, search me, O God, see if there be any unclean way in me, and realized that when they prayed that, the most likely way that unclean way was going to be revealed is through their relationships. But when you have so much power, you don't have to do that in order to get by. You see? And it feels like a blessing, but it's a curse, because it makes it mighty hard to enter the narrow gate. And that's why the Bible says, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are the meek. You can be rich and you can be meek. You can be poor and you can be arrogant. My goodness. Some of the greediest people you'll ever meet are people who don't have any money. And some of the most arrogant, snobby people are some of those folks who have nothing but pretend to have a lot. I'm just saying, you've got power. Be careful. Be careful. Become conscious. Pharaoh had the power. And when you get right down to it, the reason he said, wait till tomorrow, is because that gave him a little bit more control. You know, maybe by tomorrow my magicians will have figured something out, a way to get rid of these frogs, and I won't need him after all. And then I can keep what I want and go right on about my business. It's worth a chance. And therefore, for most of us, the best thing in the world that can happen is to find ourselves laying flat on our back, because there's one thing about laying flat on your back, helpless for the first time in life. There's only one way to look, and that's up. You realize how low you are, and you're able to see things you never saw before. Pharaoh had to do it the hard way. Don't do it the hard way.